I think if the Watson trade fails, and if you put Baker Mayfield on this quarterback market that includes free agents, tradable commodities, and draft prospects, Baker's the best option right now. That's for the Browns, and that's also true for the Seahawks, the Colts, whoever else needs a quarterback around the league. Who else needs a quarterback? Who am I forgetting? But why is Baker Mayfield not the best option going into the fifth-year option is not it doesn't crush your cap.
No, but
and it gives you another year to assess him in a new situation. The Texans, whoever.
How many teams, when you need a quarterback, how attractive is another team that needs a quarterback's cast off, is my point, right? Baker Mayfield, we've reached the point where the Browns cannot give Baker Mayfield a long-term contract because they don't believe that he is their franchise quarterback. I remember this is a franchise with an insane incentive to call anybody their franchise quarterback because they're the team with the jersey with like 1,000,001 names on it that Baker Mayfield halted. So as much as anybody in the league, this team is motivated to just slap that tag on somebody and roll with it for a while. If they are done with him and trying to get rid of him, that's not a good sign. That's like, when Bill Belichick calls you up, right, and is like, hey, I've got this random linebacker that I'm looking to ship off for a 7th-round pick. You interested? Immediately, that should just be setting off alarm bells, right? Like, just on its face. You're like, hang on. Why would you want to get rid of a linebacker that's been playing really well? That doesn't seem right. When the Browns are calling you up, being like, hey, we got this great quarterback you might be interested in. What do you think?
No, you're calling the Browns because you read his notes.
Right, but when you say, hey, I've got a 3rd-round pick I can give you, and they're like, sold. That should immediately start setting off alarm bells in your head.
I don't know. Because if you're the Indianapolis Colts, who do not have a 1st-round pick, what's your fallback? You're Marcus Mariota or giving something up for Jimmy Garoppolo? Do you trust Jimmy Garoppolo more than Baker Mayfield? You don't. I know you don't.
Do either.
What?
I don't want to do either of those things.
Okay, so for the Colts, let's start with the Colts. Provide an alternative. What are the Colts going to do at quarterback?
I don't know.
This is the problem with all the analysis. Like Carson Wentz gets traded to Washington, and everybody's like, "Oh, you idiot Commanders! Why would you trade for Carson Wentz?" All right, fine. Give me an alternative. Who's better than Carson Wentz, and how are you getting him?
I mean, for the Commanders, you sign Jameis Winston for a bag of peanuts.
There's an alternative.
Cost you anything.
Great. Not most people aren't bringing an alternative. What's the alternative for the Colts, who don't have a 1st-round pick? They just signed Jameis Winston too. Is everybody just going to sign Jameis? Because Jameis is probably going to end up with the Saints if they fail in the Deshaun Watson thing.
Yeah. I mean, the Colts have a problem because they decided that Carson Wentz was not good enough, having traded for him. And now you're in a position of the guy you bring in presumably has to be better than Carson Wentz. And, I mean, it's like Garoppolo, Baker Mayfield, they probably are, but it's like they're much the same. You know what I mean?
No, you're still in the middle tier. The middle tier of quarterbacks 11 through 23 or whatever that is, that have slight differences, but they're in just the middle class of the distribution, right? Where you can get high-end seasons, you can get trash seasons. With Wentz, you can get a high-end MVP caliber season, you can get one that makes you want to trade him twice, 2 different teams, right? With Baker, you have one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen. We have a playoff run with the Cleveland Browns where they lost to the Chiefs by 5. Yeah, it was Chad Henne's Chiefs, but they lost to the Chiefs by 5 in the playoffs. Baker Mayfield did that with the Cleveland Browns in a very good season with no number 1 wide receiver. That actually happened a year ago. Those things happened. You can invest in that, right? There's 2 trash seasons in there too for Baker. But he's more appealing than Mariota, and he's at least as appealing as Jimmy Garoppolo. Unless you're just looking at wins and losses for Jimmy G.
I mean, Mariota might be a viable option. My problem is there's no good option left that isn't completely out of whack in terms of what it costs you to bring in, right? In terms of draft picks, salary, whatever it is. The options that make sense are the ones that don't cost much, so you can dedicate resources somewhere else. That's
the Mariota play.
Yes.
And I've been a fan of the teams in transition, knowing that the options are horrible. I've been a fan of the Mariota play, right? But you're also just like trading for Carson Wentz, you're kind of praying, right? You're praying that you see something better than what you've seen recently. Mariota got run out of Tennessee. where Ryan Tannehill, a career slightly above average starter, has looked like a star for the last 3 years in a similar situation. That A/B analysis is not great for Marcus Mariota. I mean, unless you think he's going to become the next Tannehill, who in a new situation does a similar thing.
The Baker trade market feels like what I thought the Cousins one would look like, which is like at some point a team is just going to be desperate enough to not be the team when the music stops with no quarterback, and they're going to do it. Something, anything, right?
Who's that?
Whoever the team is at that point, right? We get far enough along in the process that the music is about to stop, and you don't want to be the team starting Sam Darnold or Drew Lock. So Carolina, Seattle make a lot of sense. Maybe the Colts are the team that gets desperate enough. Like a team like that who just doesn't have anything right now and no obvious path necessarily to securing one in the draft, or a guy or just doesn't like the draft enough, which frankly is another theme for this whole process.
I keep forgetting the Panthers as the QB needy team. So they're one where, based off the move they made last year, which was grab your class of 2018 cast-off quarterback,
like they're not doing that again.
I don't see the Panthers bringing in Baker Mayfield to hang out with Sam Darnold as 2018 draft class cast-offs. I don't see that happening. So what about the Seahawks? What are the Seahawks' best options? They pick at 9, so they could love a rookie contract quarterback. I have an easier case selling the Seahawks on draft Malik Willis if he's there, draft a guy, Desmond Ridder, whatever it is. Not necessarily at 9, but draft a guy, because you'll have the opportunity to do that and go through the full rebuild in Seattle, because I think that's where they are as a franchise, even with the age of their coach, Pete Carroll. They're in full rebuild mode. Chris Ballard and the Colts are in 5th year of different quarterback. That's what Darius Leonard was tweeting about. That's why he's recruiting everybody. Like, they think they're going to win again. They have a better foundation on their roster. They're in the AFC South. They can compete. They're more likely to make. So I think the Colts are a good fit for Baker Mayfield. And I think the Colts should look at Baker as much as they look at Mariota. You weigh the balance sheet. I think Baker's a better player. It has higher upside than Marcus Mariota. You weigh the balance sheet, though, because what else do you have to give up to get him? Versus Mariota perhaps being on the cheap, and you keep your draft picks.
I mean, Seattle, to me, makes sense to draft somebody on the basis that they've just torn down the entire thing. Like, this roster is now in pieces. There's nothing there. Like, they are committing to a full rebuild, at which point, what's the point in bringing in a Baker Mayfield? Unless the Seahawks loved Baker Mayfield as a prospect, and they think that, hey, throw out last year, throw out 2019. At that point, you've got a quarterback that's got a couple of pretty good seasons under his belt, was a number 1 overall pick, and we think we can turn him into whatever, like the perfect don't screw it up quarterback that Russ never was, right? The guy that will hand it off 25 times a game and be thankful that we let him pass the ball every now and again. Like, maybe he's Pete Carroll's dream quarterback in some weird, like, alternate reality, and they convince themselves that Baker's the guy. Other than that, like, what's the benefit? You're going to suck this year.
Don't you want Baker with a nice motivational speaker like Pete Carroll?
Pete Carroll?
Yeah.
Go out there, Baker, and don't do anything other than hand it off.
Yeah, but he'll be motivated to do it.